Ow. Hey y'all, welcome. I actually have been about 15 minutes into this video when I realized that my microphone wasn't connected. And it's not just that like my little stand mic wasn't connected, like my actual decent podcaster's mic, but that my phone was connected to my speaker in the other room. So it's not even like I could have upped the audio. No. So right now, we're working on skincare and I'm talking about a terrible book. Oh, you needed to look up my nose. Okay, well, camera's finally in focus. Um, so let's get into talking about the book. The book is called The Commandant's Girl by Pam Jenoff. I read a different book of hers earlier this year, and I did not like it. I didn't like it worth a damn. Like, the way she set up this character was to be this really intelligent young woman, and none of the choices she makes throughout the book illustrate that she is an intelligent young woman. Like, she makes choices that are completely antithetical to her own preservancy. Oh, criminally, I may also be stoned. Self-preservation. That's the word I want. Self-preservation. Anyway, so she makes choices that are completely oppositional to just the idea of protecting herself. And in a world where everything is controlled by men. And I'm not talking this world. I'm talking like both of these books, they may be about women, but mostly the people that determine their fate and where they go from here is a man. And that, I have been marinating on this for several days. These books are about women, but they wouldn't pass the Bechdel test. The Commandant's Girl was the one that I just finished. And we start the novel with the main character and her husband needing to kind of separate at the beginning of World War II after Germany invades Poland. For the rest of the book, she gets herself in some pretty sticky situations. I didn't find them all entirely unbelievable. But at least once per conversation, she has to at least think about her husband. She cannot go back to like, we have to protect Krakow. She's not in Warsaw. This one's in Krakow. But at no point does she have a thought that like this war must end, this incursion must end. And this woman is Jewish. Like, she's a Jew in hiding. And it takes a good, 10 chapters, starting from the war breaking out to her making the decision to go work for a high-ranking Nazi. And she is pulled into that boat by both him, who meets her at an event with her aunt, the woman she is hiding with and has been placed there by the resistance. Backstory, she is married, but she and her husband have not actually had a chance to go register their marriage with the state of Poland. He is a resistance fighter, and they're both Jewish. So her family is involved in this. Her husband's aunt, the one not related to the Jewish relative, it's a lot. It is a lot. And honestly, that connection did not need to be there. It didn't need to be there. She could have been any Catholic woman. Because at no point, yes, they are both worried about her husband. That's fine. But at no point does, that connection ever really pose a problem. Because nobody knows that she's married to her husband. And the aunt has a completely different last name than the husband anyway. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I don't remember. But that connection did not need to exist. So they marry, he goes into hiding. she gets fired from her job at the library, which you tell a reader that somebody is a librarian. Hopefully at some point does it come back as something better than I'm a librarian and I have excellent research and organizational skills, which is why I was able to whip this Nazi's office into shape. Like that skill, that ability to compartmentalize things really should have been used as a plot device and not just more backstory. It's not important that she was a librarian, but there it is. So she loses her job because she is a Jew. Her parents are moved into the ghetto. I don't know where she is when this being moved into the ghetto happens. I don't remember. But her instinct is, instead of saying, okay, I have missed this being round up into the ghetto. Granted, I am reading this as someone with 2024 sight into 1940. So granted, looking at this from almost 100 years removed from the event, I can give way to the idea that the Jews didn't know that when they were being moved into the ghetto, that they were not coming back. They didn't have that foresight. Her instinct was, I need to be with my family. So this book has a lot of Deus Ex Machina moments. You're not familiar, a Deus Ex Machina moment is when something seems too convenient. Like much later in the book. This is going to be spoiler heavy, by the way, because I don't know how to give you a basic synopsis and then go into the details. So we're just going to go into the details. I haven't outlined or mapped out or anything. I'm telling you what I remember from the plot, which is thick. It's thick and it's weird. Yet everything happens right on the right side for her. It's just banarnars. It's banarnars. It's Arpels and banarnars. And she gets smuggled out of the ghetto after being there for a couple of months. Her husband's mysterious resistance fighter friends smuggle her out of the ghetto. Keep in mind, they don't tell her when they wake her up in the middle of the night that she's being smuggled out, and to bring anything like her ketubah, her Jewish marriage contract, or even her wedding ring. None of that. She is just grabbed in the middle of the night. She puts on her coat and they leave. And she is taken. She's not consulted before being forced to leave the ghetto. Like at no point do her friends in the resistance ask her, do you want to be smuggled out or do you want to stay with your parents? Because that's something that we really should give weight to in these novels. Because most of the book, she is trying to figure out what is happening to her parents as well as her husband. That is completely legit, totally understandable. I didn't give a second thought to that. The fact that she doesn't have a say in the fact that she is getting smuggled out, she just gets awakened one night, dragged out of her parents' apartment, and she catches a glimpse of them sleeping on the other side of a curtain. And that's it. So she gets brought to the home of her husband's elegant, very Catholic, high society aunt. She has some very strong connections in the Nazi government. And after a couple weeks of residing with her, our main character, who by this point in the book is going by Anna. She had a very similar name in the beginning, but we're just going to call her Anna from here on out because that's what she goes by. Ooh, spooky. Okay. So after a few weeks of living, there's another story I need to go into. Fuck. Okay. Anna is living in the ghetto under her actual Jewish name. She hears a commotion in the alley behind her apartment, looks out the window, sees a Jewish woman a Jewish pregnant woman shot on the ground, and her husband, who is a rabbi, is dragged from the apartment, and she hears a little boy screaming. Like, that is what she witnesses. Come to find out, that little boy is the next in a rabbinic line and had to be smuggled out of the ghetto, and guess where he's staying? Again, that scene where she's watching the mother, that didn't need to be that didn't need to be included. I don't understand why this couldn't be a Jewish boy who had to be smuggled out. You know, a parent throughout the book, she first of all greatly underestimates the age at which children start to speak and understand what's going on around them. They stop babbling when they're about 8 to 10 months and they start trying to make words. A 3-year-old doesn't babble. They might talk a lot and talk really, really fast, but a 3-year-old doesn't babble. But we are told when he is brought, he is about 3 years old, and he is staying in the home. Anna and her husband's aunt, whose name I can't remember. And she has to make up the story about how she's from a small town and she was a school teacher and her parents died in a house fire. Okay, so we haven't even gotten to the Kommandant, who is in the title of the book. I feel like this could be a period where we got too much information too early and we were not introduced to the important characters early enough on. We are finally, at long last, introduced to this Nazi commandant at a dinner party that her aunt holds. And there's instant chemistry. Anna and this commandant just fall into it. And the thing about these stories that I usually find really interesting is how, as a Jew and a woman, people who go undercover, because women did this during World War II. They would go undercover, they would seduce a Nazi, they would get the information. Sometimes they'd kill him. It was not unheard of. But no, in this story, our main character finds the Nazi a really good guy, and she sees a lot of good in him, and they have this very strong chemistry. I didn't realize how much I hated it until I started talking about it. I'm like, yeah, there's something seriously effed up about that. So she meets this commandant. The commandant just happens to need a personal assistant in his office, like a main sec. She applies. She immediately wants to turn it down, but instead is persuaded by her aunt to actually take the job. And at no point does her higher power take over and say, this could be a really good chance to help the resistance, to help move the war along, to help defeat the Nazis. No. She does things with the wrong motivation and the wrong people in mind. She has regular meetups with the resistance at a coffee shop bar place not too far from the Nazi-held, I guess it's a former Polish palace, and it's been taken over by the Nazis. But, you know, anyone who's ever done anything subversive, especially over a long period of time, like, I haven't, but I've read enough about it. You want to make yourself as untraceable and untrackable as possible, meaning that, you know, you might meet at this coffee shop on a Monday, but if you're meeting Wednesday, you're meeting across town at a bar. Time and time again, we find the characters in these really just improbable situations. And the problem is that nothing comes from these situations. No problems arise that are going to challenge the secrecy of her identity or betray her to the commandant. Nothing. She does a little bit of work for the resistance. She steals passes in and out of the ghetto. But she also flubs and drops a stack and has to put a bunch of them back in the safe, not in order. Like they're in numerical order. At no point are these passes that she is stealing, not once do they come back to bite her in the ass. Like, this is why you have characters do things. This is why you have them make choices, because choices, regardless of the choice, is going to have a consequence. And like, so often her choices either don't come back to bite her at all, they bite her way too late, and then she magically manages to escape out of it. Good luck, by good fortune, she is just able to escape whatever consequences are being thrown at her. This is the exact same problem I had with the last book. It feels like things are very, like, they're chapterized. This is not a fluid story. These are chapters in a story that don't really intersect. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like this method of non-consequential storytelling. The reason that we learn to love a character is because they're human, and humans by nature are imperfect. So you're not going to make perfect choices every time. You are going to mess up. You are going to have to face the consequences of those actions. And how do you work through that? It was too contrived. It was too simple. You know, she ends up having this major love affair with this Kommandant. I cannot tell you, like, just some of the sex scenes are fine, but when you think back to the subtext that this is a Jew and a Nazi, it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. I feel like very little actually happens after she starts having the love affair with the Nazi. She doesn't have to suddenly move homes because the resistance was unable to protect her. No. And again, through all of this danger and this subversive activity, her only thoughts are of her husband. And I don't mean to sound callous. I don't want to sound callous that, like, yes, caring for your partner is important, and caring about their safety is something that obviously when you're in a wartime situation is going to look and ring differently to everybody. But nonetheless, like, it's the only thing that she thinks about. And like, she'll hear something about a resistance member and she'll be like, do they know Jakob? Where's Jakob? Jakob! Just like, so the aunt. I like the aunt as a character. I do. She's mysterious. She's worldly. She knows the right people. But she, again, never manages to get caught. And at the end of the book, most things come to a head, and then it's like a train smashing into a wall. It all comes at once, and then for some, like, it barely matters. It barely matters. Okay, so the aunt, again, doesn't face consequences, but she is able to summon the resistance, like an Accio spell from Harry Potter. The daughter, the Anna will want to talk to the head of the resistance, and the aunt goes away and comes back a couple hours later, and she's like, 2 days. That's not how underground resistance networks moved, and even if they did, it would be really dangerous. I don't know. It just doesn't sound natural. It just doesn't sound plausible. I'm trying to remember what the middle of the book is about. Because not only, like, doesn't it take a good long while for us to meet him, they don't start knocking boots for a while. There's a side story with his driver, and is he actually a Nazi? Is he the member of the resistance hiding amongst the Nazis? Who is he? We don't know. We never get an answer to that. And that that is what is one of the points that is so confusing about this book. You know, you would hope that by the end of a book that, it's right here in front of me. That is the frustrating thing about having gotten to this book, that you're like, okay, I've checked, it's a one-off. So yeah, I'm trying to remember what happens in the middle of the book. There's not a whole lot. You know, things finally get moving again. You know, what's the only course that could disrupt this lover Jew Nazi knockin' boots fest? A baby. Of course, she finds out that she is pregnant. She's in the kitchen making cholent. God, I miss good cholent. Oh my God. I miss if you've never had cholent, it is like the stewiest beef stew that ever stewed. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, next thing she knows, the aunt's favorite crockery is broken on the kitchen tile. And the aunt looks at her and is like, when was your last cycle? And she's like, I haven't had it for a while. And I'm like, you didn't use protection with a Nazi? Yeah. So magically she becomes pregnant, and this becomes a problem for everybody. She magically is able to obtain some larger clothes. She decides not to tell the Nazi, and the aunt arranges that the resistance is going to get her out in 3 weeks. So we have everything already lined up. Nothing left to question. But is it actually going to go like that? Of course not. Of course not. So later that week, she's taking off her coat in front of her nosy coworker, and the coworker sees her belly and understands immediately what the deal is. So suddenly she's outed to the boss. She's outed to the Kommandant, the big baddie. Now, there was one night in the middle of the book where her husband is able to see her and they're able to do their thing. So there is like the tiniest, itty bittiest chance that it could be her husband's. But we know it's not, because she's too far along. It has to be his. Like, if that had been an actual debatable, we don't know situation, if that was something that was seriously brought to question, that would have added an interesting element to the story. But no, it's just instantly shot down. Of course, the secretary tells the Kommandant, and the Commandant's like, oh my God, I'm so happy. Let's, we'll get married at the end of the war, and I'll send you to my family home in Austria until the war is over. Like, at this point, I don't remember how far we are into the war. I know that this whole ordeal takes place over the course of less than a year. So she ends up on his side, having him thinking that she's going to go to his family home in Austria, when she's really going to escape with one of the resistance into the woods. I'm trying to remember how things, who opens the chicken coop. Because that's basically what the last 3-5 chapters of this book are, is like someone just opening the door and all the chickens flying out. All of them. She finds out she's pregnant. So I listen to these books. I still don't know the name of the assistant, the secretary, who is of course jealous and eyeballing her in the entire movie. Oh, so the resistance works. She steals the passes. She takes carbon copies of documents. And I think she does something else with documents. I don't remember. They're not that important to the story, obviously. And at one point, she has been in his private home searching for documents, and she comes out with them tucked in her blouse, but she doesn't think to stuff them further down so they're not seen. And our guy's driver stops her coming out of his home, and he's like, the thingy. And she's like, I need these, and walks away. Where are the consequences? Is any plot development from that point? It's like it's like you're sitting on a bus that can't quite decide what it wants to do, and it's like, you know, you're in stop and go traffic, and it's a lot of stop for a long time. So yeah, the resistance work is nah. I mean, she finds a piece of paper that says that they're going to empty the ghetto in January. Well, that has made all the difference to the resistance, because now they have a timeline. Awesome sauce. I cannot remember how she gets there or who she follows, but somehow she ends up in a cabin with the members of the resistance. She ends up like following them. So I don't know. It's stupid. Like, it is a dumb choice, especially given that she's a Jew hiding undercover. Like, you want to make as little of yourself as possible. You want to make yourself as non-noticeable, non-threatening, you know, as little attention as possible. And yet she keeps acting like a dumbass. So through all of this, the Kommandant comes over for dinner one evening, and the three adults are sitting there with the little boy. And granted, he's 2.5 or 3. He has no reason to know it's Friday night, but he looks at the Kommandant and says, Sabah Salom! And you're like, wait just a... No. There are no candles, there's no bread, there's nothing around. There are no context clues for him to know that Sabbat is Shabbat, which is Friday. And all of a sudden, the Nazi gets this, what did he say? Like, immediately what he said had to be something Jewish. There's all these little moments. So, all right. Let's finish this up, because the low power thing is showing up on my laptop. She is going to leave with the resistance. They're going to do it overnight. They're going to expedite her leaving, because the Kommandant now knows that she's pregnant and is planning to leave with her. She has to get out faster. Well, on top of it, the Germans have been losing the war, and she and the Kommandant haven't been seeing each other. So he's like, I want to spend one last night here in our home. And of course she agrees. She's not like, well, if we're leaving in the morning, I should really focus on packing to go with you tomorrow instead of... But no, she goes to his house. She makes a charcuterie board and dumps some sleeping powder into his brandy that his aunt magically has from their friend the pharmacist. We are told that she must be back before 4 a.m. because that is when she turns into a pumpkin, is at 4 a.m. She stays at the Kommandant until 11. She leaves to go back to her place. She has to wait until he's asleep. I don't understand. So she has to wait till he's asleep. She leaves, and in a momentary rush of need, she decides to go like half an hour out of her way across the river after dark. So there's a curfew in place. See her father, to walk along the ghetto walls and look for her parents. Like, I understand, but that is a stupid decision to make. She gets outside the ghetto walls, and there's a tiny little crack that's like less than a body width. And the man trudging towards her through the other side of the wall just happens to be her father. Her mother dies earlier, as they did in the ghetto. No. But that's her father, and they, she tells them that she's going to have a baby, and I can't remember what else, but he's like at peace and he's fine, but he can't sleep, so he goes on these walks and he magically runs into his daughter on the other side of the ghetto walls. She does fess up that there's no way that they can get him out. So, welcome to reality, young lady. So she is back on the bridge on her, she's crawling between these rudders, I guess, or the bridge supports to get back into the main city when a van ends up driving towards her, and it's the fucking Kommandant. And she's walking away and she's got like a scarf wrapped around herself and she's making herself very small. And he manages to figure it out that it's her. And then, her father gives her her ketubah and her wedding rings. He finds, so the Nazi Kommandant finds this ketubah in her pocket. And she's like, I really should throw this out, but it's too sentimental and my papa gave it. And I'm just like, bitch, throw it away. Time to take my meds. I'm like, throw it away. That is the last thing you need in your possession right now. But no, the Kommandant finds it and magically realizes that it's her on the ketubah. And they start going back and forth over whether they can have this baby together and if she's a Jew and they can just kind of ignore who they are. So he turns around and all of a sudden she hears gunshots. And what does she do it's not running away. She like cradles him and cries as he dies. And then she looks up and realizes it's one of the resistance who shot him. And I'm just like, girl, your luck is otherworldly. So yeah, from there, she goes to her aunt's, and the Gestapo had been to her aunt's home before. I can't remember what it is that, she manages to like make a phone call to some magic people who call the Gestapo and have them leave. It's unbelievable and stupid. So the Gestapo come back and they've lit her aunt's house on fire and she's dead. But the little boy is nowhere to be found. Well, she suddenly remembers that the little boy and his family hid up in the attic. Maybe he's up in this is the first time we're hearing about the bloody attic. But magically she goes up there and there he is, fine. So they leave and they go off into the woods. And end of book. It's like, where the fuck did the attic come from? Not once do we hear about the attic and how important it is. We don't hear him going, attic, going to go up. No, we don't hear this. Not at any point is that mentioned. So anyway, just avoid this book. I am just going to cross this author off of the list of historical fiction authors that I really enjoy because maybe it's just my style. I don't like this kind of book. I want longer consequences. I want a longer period of time to get to know these characters with more happening in between. Like, I just don't know how to explain it. But yeah, I found the story structure, I found the characters just really discombobulated. I had a hard time. So maybe next time I'll talk about a book I really enjoyed if I do this again. I don't know. We'll see how this video is to edit. I hope you're all taking care of yourself so you can take care of each other. I'll see you later. Good night. Stab you in the heart. I squish you like bugs.